Hey, happy Tuesday, everyone. You know what? You know what we need at this point is I need a camera taking a video of me trying to set this damn camera up because it's honestly hilarious. I was just thinking about it. It's like, man, if there's a hidden camera in here, if y'all could be a fly on the wall, good God, Gertie. Anyway, hope everyone's having a great week thus far. So funny, I made a video yesterday that was actually kind of intended to be the introductory video. I was saying on it, I never do stuff in order. It's very characteristic of me. I just kind of I'm very in the moment. Spontaneity is a big part of my life and just how I operate. And I kind of operate more by intuition than I do necessarily the logical order of things. And I believe more in execution than I do perfection. Although that was something I struggled with for a long time. So anyway, the other thing I want to say is I sometimes try to jot stuff down on my legal pad so I can at least have some talking points and whatnot. And so I can be more methodical about the order I go in. But what I realize is it's not me. It never has been. I've always been very unscripted, very off the cuff. I like to speak from the heart. I like to just operate from a flow state where, what I'm meant to say is funneled through me, and that's it. And not really have a script. So, needless to say, I'm going to try and keep this as brief and concise and straight to the point as I can, but it may not turn out that way. But it's off the cuff. So, kind of what I wanted to talk about, as I mentioned, is give you all more of an introduction, sort of about me, my path, again, short form if we can, and the purpose and the mission of Sitoway, kind of the concept behind it. So, the main concept behind Sitoway is Sitoway. I've always marched the beat of my own drummer ever since I was a little kid. I've always been out of the box. I've never really, you couldn't put me in a box if you tried. So I've always just been unique and I embodied it at a very young age. But what happened was kind of through the traditional scholastic journey, through growing up just in general, I sort of, for lack of a better way to state it, I got it beat out of me. Just because, society, I think, a lot of times wants us all to conform, and I don't believe that's how nature intended it. I believe we're all very unique. I mean, look, even our fingerprints, no two are the same. No two people are exactly the same. We all have unique, God-given, universe-granted gifts, talents, and abilities that make us who we are. And I believe that our purpose here is to grow and realize more of those talents, gifts, and abilities and bring more of them to the surface and utilize them to the absolute best of our abilities to make the world a better place and be a light. And let your light shine. And I believe, looking back, you don't always see it, right? Retrospect or hindsight's 20/20, and I look back and I'm like, oh, okay. So I almost basically had to lose myself completely. God, I'm looking at this thing right now, man. I hope this damn thing's on. It is. So anyway, I almost had to lose myself completely to then, in essence, rediscover who I already knew I was in my heart of hearts. And it was only through that tumultuous, incredibly painful struggle that I did rediscover who I am and who God intended me to be. And so basically with that, my goal, my objective, I believe my purpose, my calling is with the wisdom that I've been so generously blessed with, remember, I'm just the vessel. With the wisdom I've been so generously blessed with through my struggle and all that, I feel like I need to impart and share what I've learned on my journey in hopes that maybe, and that's why everything I say is just 2 cents. It's my 2 cents. You can take it with a grain of salt. You should. But it's just food. It's stuff to chew on. It's food for thought. So maybe it sparks something in you. Maybe it gets you to think and start questioning things about the world and your life. But the main objective is for you. Sitoway is basically my destiny unfolding. The concept behind it is to live true to who you are, to not live a lie, to be in alignment, to be on purpose with your purpose, to live the true desires of your heart, to live your calling. And so that's my goal and objective. And I feel like part of my calling is by imparting what I've learned, to hopefully get y'all to start thinking about and feeling about, more importantly, what are your unique gifts, talents, and abilities, and how can you utilize those to enrich your life and the lives of those around you. And I want to say something real quick. I'll probably do a whole separate video on this. I used to think that whole concept of focus on yourself and it was selfish, right? Like, oh, you focus on yourself. What? So what? You neglect everyone you love and care for? You know what? I've realized through my struggle and as I've gotten older, it's the exact opposite. The more I take true, genuine care of myself, right? Not lack of discipline care and letting myself basically decay care. It's not care. The more I pour into myself, the more full I am, the more abundant I am, the more I can give back and give out and let my light shine. So that's really the mission, is just to get people to wake up to who they really are, to not live life on autopilot, to question why you're doing certain things in your life, to question whether you are in alignment, what areas you're more in alignment in than others. Basically just to live an authentic life. You know, the thing I always think about is getting to the end, right? And looking back on my life and going, God, I didn't live true to who I was. That still small voice was there, but I neglected it. I ignored it. And for a while, as I mentioned before, I tried to shut that down. And it's sad looking back, but I know that it had to happen the way it happened for me to really, again, reawaken, actually awaken to an even greater degree than I was before, and rediscover who I am and even more of who I am. Peel back more layers of who I am and bring bring those gifts, talents, and abilities to the surface. And so just so you know, you can get a little context. When I say struggle, I struggled, I always felt different. I mean, always. Even like as far back as I can remember, I felt different. I just felt out of place. I could be in a room full of people. I remember even as a little kid and just feel so alone. And I got to a certain age, maybe, between 4 and 5 years old. I was very creative, very industrious, doing my own thing, like building things and taking things apart and figuring out how to refine them and make them better and rebuild them. And while a lot of the kids, in the neighborhood, whatever, were doing different things, starting to do different things, that was my thing. That's what charged me up. That's what made me tick. Those were my passions. And I guess it wasn't really until I probably started school, maybe kindergarten or something, and I got around enough other kids that I really started to feel that loneliness and separation, and started to, as sad as it is, the honest truth is, I started to become very self-deprecating as a young kid, probably way too young. I started to kind of develop self-hatred to a certain degree because I couldn't figure out. It was frustrating to me and it made me sad. Like, why couldn't I just fall in line? Why do I think differently? Why do I see the world differently? Why do I sense the emotions of those around me and the moods of those around me to such a great degree? Why can't I just go play sports and do what other kids do, right? Well, I didn't want to. It wasn't my thing. It wasn't my thing. And I stayed true to it. For the most part, I think what really started to take a toll, thinking back, is, like I said, going through the scholastic journey and then having teachers kind of single me out and tell my mom, oh, this kid, he can't learn the same. He needs this, he needs that. And I guess sort of adding insult to injury, just causing myself to feel even more ostracized than I already did. And it compounded over time. And then it was like, probably when I was probably 7 years old, I think. Parent-teacher conference, and the teacher was like, look, this kid needs help. He can't focus. I think this was sort of, can't focus. So lo and behold, they hauled me into a psychiatrist, got me evaluated, whatever. Okay, he's got ADHD. Let's slap him on Ritalin. And I was already a fairly thin kid. And I think I lost like 15 pounds, 20 pounds. Couldn't eat. Wired as all get out. My mom freaked out, rightfully so, ripped me off it. And then going forward, it just got worse. I really couldn't focus. I was so consumed with, I just always was more of a creative mind, and sitting in a classroom learning about math but the practice of it, like the theoretical stuff, I was just more hands-on. The theoretical stuff just didn't resonate with me. And probably when it got really bad was, I was 14 or 15. I was 14, I believe. Yeah, I was 14 years old. Kind of the quick version of it is my parents lost their house on the courthouse steps, foreclosed, in Bird Rock, where I grew up. And my family kind of fell apart. My dad moved away for a couple years. He had quit alcohol after years and years of drinking. He's a Vietnam War vet. And it didn't go well. And I think around that time, it started getting, like, probably in 6th grade, Let me go back real quick. So in 6th grade, I forgot about this part. I was like starting to, my anxiety and well, it's more anxiety and obsessive compulsive proclivities. They started to heighten, and I was really into skateboarding at this time. Like, it was all I wanted to do. That was kind of my creative outlet, was learning new tricks and like, I don't know, man. I was just on it, and it was good for me. But nonetheless, I couldn't focus in school. And even when I'd go skateboard after school, I'd skate every day. I just still couldn't be in the moment. I had a really hard time being in the moment. This was 6th grade. And I believe it started with headaches. And it's almost, looking back, it just sounds so ridiculous. But I literally used to cry myself to sleep because I thought I'd done a bunch of research online, Mayo Clinic, whatever, WebMD. I'm like, I got neuroblastoma. It's terminal. I got a brain tumor. Like, but it was the hypochondriacal symptoms, kind of, due to hypochondria, kind of due to the obsessive compulsive nature of OCD, had just gotten so out of hand that I really believed this stuff. And I was going to the doctor, like my family pediatrician, like once a week, getting checked out. It was getting crazy. And then it got to diabetes. I was convinced I would like count my sugar intake every day. I was fastidious about it. And if I'd go a little over, I'd be like, I'm done. I'm diabetic. And it was really hard on me. I couldn't focus. I felt even more far removed from everyone else. And I'm the type of person that kind of wears my heart on my sleeve. So all my friends that were close to me growing up, they're like, what's wrong with you? I'd go skate, but I was just off. And they're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I think I got this. They're like, dude, they couldn't get it really. But they supported me and loved me. And they say, you need to stop worrying. And that progressed for a few years. And then it was, obviously, like I said before, we lost a house. Family split up. And at that time, with puberty and everything, it was just not a good time. And so, lo and behold, at this time, they ended up putting me, I'd never been on anything for obsessive compulsive disorder, any pharmaceutical, but they ended up putting me on Zoloft. I remember it was the first drug, and it was a much higher dose than it's an SSRI, so it's an antidepressant. And typically, it can be used to treat depression, but at higher dosages can be used to treat obsessive compulsive disorder. So they put me on that. It was a higher dose, and I started, it worked for a while. I have to say, it actually did help me for a while. I feel like I sort of got myself back a little bit. But again, all the compounding of all these events just made me feel more different, now there's another thing wrong with me. Now there's this, and it just kept getting worse, right? And probably so that was 9th grade. Probably and then we moved into these apartments down the street. My mom was making like $15 an hour at the time. No money. They had to file bankruptcy. She was making like $15 an hour, trying to support my sister and I, and my baby sister and I. And I remember, I was like scraping change together to go get dinner and whatever. So it didn't help the situation. Kind of feel like I had to grow up faster as a result. Spent a lot of time by myself. And it got worse, on medication. That drug, the initial Zoloft, probably after a year or so, maybe it was 2 years, I can't remember, ended up losing its efficacy and actually started having adverse effects on me. So then it was another drug, and then it was another. So it was this never-ending, seemingly interminable treadmill I was on of, it's like a treadmill to hell. You know what I mean? I just felt like I couldn't see the light. And eventually just stopped. Kind of, I wasn't going to school. I was sick all the time physically because I was so I can imagine. I mean, if I really if I really knew what cortisol was back then, I can't even imagine my cortisol levels, but I was sick all the time. I would just flat out wouldn't go to school. I'd just ditch. I'd go surf or something. Very, very low point. And fast forward a number of years, I've been on like 26 different pharmaceuticals in my life. But what happened was over the years, and then fast forward to after high school, it was like, then again, this is just my own experience I'm telling y'all. This is not, in no way am I suggesting you do anything. Again, this is just, I'm trying to give you some context here. So fast forward a number of years, and it seemed like everything just kept getting worse. And then I would have new symptoms appear. Like, I was never really depressed before. It was just kind of anxiety, obsessive compulsive type stuff. And then I started getting depressed. And then when I was probably like right after high school, some of the things I never thought I would do, I started doing. And a lot of the things just compounded. I kept feeling more and more isolated and ostracized and alone. And probably right after high school, something I never even imagined doing, I started self-mutilating. I was smoking cigarettes at the time. That was part of it. A lot of it was like self-inflicted, just self-destruction. So not really direct self-mutilation. But yeah, I was probably smoking like a pack and a half of Marlboro Reds a day. And I would put lit cigarettes out on my skin. And then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then that increased from hurting myself to really more intense and more frequent. I'd never really had suicidal thoughts, and then I started having those. And it just got out of hand. Over time, it really, really wore on me. In the midst of all this, by the way, I'm, decided, because of how school had panned out for me, I was like, I'm not going to school. And I'd always felt more like an entrepreneur. I started working washing dishes when I was like 14. I always wanted to work. I love people. I like to be out in the world. I like to talk to people. I like to interact with people. I like to make people smile and feel good and try and, I don't know, it's just what makes me happy. And I got to say something real quick. Even at my worst times, when I've been closest to suicide, that's like the last thought I have is I just want people to be happy. And I've since realized that really is my purpose. And I know I cannot make anyone happy, and happiness is an inside job. But maybe my path and my story, at the very least, I can be a beacon of hope to others, in a sense that they may discover that within them, because we all have to discover it within ourselves. And with whatever you believe in, that's irrelevant. But it's whatever you believe in is irrelevant. It's within. It's all within. So yeah, anyway, see what I'm saying? I don't write it down here. I'm all over the map. But look, this is from the heart. This is straight up. This is no BS. So in the midst of all this, I decided I'm not going to college. I did go to community college right after high school, but I was still working in a restaurant, like working 40 hours a week. I was just hustling. I loved it. I like to, again, interact with people, be out in the real world was more my thing, right? Went to community college, they try and get you, hey, you do GE classes or whatever, general ed. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do any of that. And that was a blessing I realized is I've always been very specific. Anything, I never lack specificity with anything I do in my life. I know exactly what I want, exactly what I'm looking for. The problem is trusting that and not getting distracted by the opinions of your parents, your contemporaries, society, social media, whatever, teachers. But I remember the counselor's like, you got to take this. I'm in like algebra class. I'm like, I'm not going to do this. This doesn't resonate with me. I barely got through math in frickin' but K through 12. Like, I'm not going to sit here and learn algebra. Sorry, like I'm just not. So what did I do? I did love to learn. I've always been like an avid reader. I'm very self-taught. I always joke. I got one friend. He's like, man, you went to YouTube University. Everything you ever learned, man, has been via YouTube. But anyway, so what I do, I just took I knew I wanted to go into business. I started studying for my real estate license. It's probably like 19. But what I did when I was at community college, I took every business class I could take. Every single one. Like business comm, business finance, business management, business admin, like all that kind of stuff. And I learned as much as I could. And I actually do. It's funny enough, I still stuff comes up where I'm like, oh yeah, that came from there. Read a bunch of books. And I kind of started on the personal development journey a few years prior. I think I started listening to like Tony Robbins and Les Brown on YouTube. I was always big, for some reason, I was always drawn to personal development books. I started listening to them on YouTube. Oh, Eric Thomas was actually the first one, but I started, shouts out ET. I met him at the mall. When was that? Maybe like 18 months ago. Legend. Guy, hey, if you ever see this, I told you when I met you, but you honestly saved my life. So shouts out ET. But listening to ET first, and then I don't remember the order. Les Brown, Tony Robbins, those are the first people. But so while in college taking the business classes, I was all like personal development junkie on that stuff, working my job, and then ended up, going through some stuff with the medication and stuff. I'm gonna keep it short because it's just a really long drawn out bunch of years. But I eventually ended up, through therapy, through mindfulness, through diet, nutrition, exercise, I ended up getting off medication. And for me, again, this is for me, this isn't for everyone. For me, it was the best thing because I was getting so much worse. Like I literally would have died. And I remember I tell my one of my best friends, he was really worried about me for a long time. And it got to a point where I was like, look, I got to get off this. It was a fork in the road for me is really what it was, is the best way to put it. It was either I figure this shit out or I'm going to fucking die. I'm going to die. Like there was really was life or death with me because I just kept getting worse. Having to be hospitalized in the psych ward on suicide watch type stuff. It just was not good. And here's the thing. Even though I'm better, I still have my days. Well, I try to keep them as moments. I still have my moments. And I've noticed that's another big purpose of Sitoway is I want to be as authentically me as I possibly can, because number one, above anything else, I always said to myself, if I survive long enough, damn it, this pain's gonna be worth something. I'm gonna make this pain for good. Before I die, other people, I will be a beacon of hope. I will speak truth into others. I will share the love that's inside of me. I will live my purpose. And not for me. Because that is the purpose of life, I believe. When you give to others, you give to yourself. So, I kind of forgot where I was going with this, but shit, I'll figure it out. Let me take a little intermission here. See, look, I'm already 31 minutes in here. No notes, whatever. It is what it is, man. Just here we go. The Sitoway, freaking hard at work. Come on, man. Okay, come on. Let's work up here. Let's figure it out. What's going on? Come on, turn those wheels, man. What's going on up here? Bro, what was I saying? Oh, my God. All right, if this, all the... Dude, I totally just lost my train of thought. I don't know. I feel like I just was dropped in a foreign country. I don't know the language. Up here, I feel like, what happened right now? Wow. I'm beside myself right now. That's crazy. What the? All right, you know what? This calls for a true, this not even in it. Well, it's going to be an intermission in a sense. I'm going to cut this video and then I'm going to film the rest of it in another one because I can't remember, frankly, where the hell I was going. It's blank right now. So we'll see you on the next one. Much love.